The creek ran clear that late summer afternoon in 1878, its waters singing over smooth stones while willows dipped their branches like fingers reaching for something just beyond their grasp. Isaac Northwood had been tracking a stray calf for the better part of 3 hours when he heard it, a sound that did not belong in this peaceful corner of southern Utah near Marysville, the unmistakable sound of a woman crying. He dismounted from his bay gelding and moved quietly through the cottonwoods, his boots careful on the rocky ground. What he found made him stop short. A young woman sat on a flat boulder near the water's edge, her face buried in her hands, shoulders shaking with the force of her sobs. Her auburn hair had come loose from its pins and tumbled down her back in waves that caught the late afternoon light. Her dress, though dusty and torn at the hem, had once been fine, the kind of thing a respectable woman might wear to church or a town social. Isaac hesitated, removing his hat out of respect. "Miss, are you hurt?" The woman's head snapped up, and he found himself looking into the most remarkable green eyes he had ever seen, even reddened from crying as they were. Fear flashed across her face and she scrambled backward on the rock. "I did not mean to startle you," he said quickly, holding up one hand while keeping his other hand well away from his revolver. "My name is Isaac Northwood. I work at the ranch about 5 miles north of here. Are you injured? Do you need help?" She stared at him for a long moment, her breath coming in short gasps. Then fresh tears spilled down her cheeks. "I am lost. I have been walking for hours and I do not know where I am." Isaac took a cautious step closer. "You are about 7 miles south of Marysville. That is in Utah territory if you were not sure of your whereabouts. Can I ask what brings you out here alone? These hills are not safe for a woman on her own." She pressed her hands to her face again. "I had nowhere else to go. My uncle, he told me I had to marry Mr. Patterson, the banker from Cedar City. He is 60 years old and already buried 2 wives. When I refused, my uncle said I was ungrateful and worthless, that I had no choice in the matter. So I ran. I took the first horse I could find and just rode until I got thrown." "Are you hurt?" Isaac asked again, concern sharpening his voice. "Just bruised," she said. "The horse threw me near some rocks, then ran off. I have been walking since dawn." Isaac looked at the sun, which was already beginning its descent toward the western mountains. "Miss, I do not mean to frighten you, but it will be dark soon. This country is full of mountain lions and bears, not to mention worse things that walk on 2 legs. I have a ranch nearby where you can rest and get something to eat. My boss, Mrs. Riley, she is a good woman. She will make sure you are safe." The young woman looked at him with those remarkable eyes, clearly trying to decide if he was telling the truth or if this was another trap. Isaac waited patiently, his hat still in his hands. "What is your name, miss?" he asked gently. "Olivia. Olivia Zimmerman." "Miss Zimmerman, I promise you on my honor that I mean you no harm, but I cannot in good conscience leave you out here alone as night falls. Will you let me help you?" Olivia Zimmerman studied his face for another long moment. Whatever she saw there must have reassured her because she nodded slowly and rose to her feet. She swayed immediately and Isaac dropped his hat to catch her elbow. "When did you last eat?" he asked. "Yesterday morning." Isaac shook his head and retrieved his hat, then guided her toward where his horse waited. "Well, that explains a good bit. Come on. Thunder here is gentle as a lamb. He will carry us both without complaint." He helped Olivia into the saddle, then swung up behind her. She stiffened at first, but as they began moving at a steady walk, she relaxed slightly. Isaac kept his arms loose on either side of her, holding the reins but being careful not to make her uncomfortable. "How old are you, Miss Zimmerman, if you do not mind my asking?" 21. "And you?" 24. "Been working cattle since I was 14, came out west from Missouri after the war ended." Well, after the war took my father and older brother, and my mother decided she wanted to live with her sister in Philadelphia. I was not much for city life. Olivia turned her head slightly. I am sorry about your father and brother. Thank you. It has been years now, but some losses never quite stop aching. Where are you from originally? Illinois. My parents died of fever 3 years ago. My uncle took me in, but he always made it clear I was a burden. When Mr. Patterson offered him money for my hand, he jumped at the chance to be rid of me. Isaac felt anger kindle in his chest at the thought of a man treating his own kin that way, but he kept his voice calm. That is a shameful way to treat family. You deserved better. I used to think so, Olivia said quietly, but I have been told so many times that I am worthless that perhaps it is true. It is not true, Isaac said firmly. Any man who would sell off his own niece like livestock is not fit to judge anyone's worth. You were brave to run. That takes courage. Olivia did not respond, but he felt her take a shaky breath. They rode in silence for a while, the only sounds the steady clop of thunder's hooves and the evening songs of birds settling in for the night. The Riley Ranch came into view as the sun painted the sky in shades of orange and purple. It was not a grand spread, but it was prosperous enough with a sturdy house, a good barn and corrals that held about 30 head of cattle and several horses. Smoke rose from the chimney, and lamplight glowed warm in the windows. Isaac dismounted first, then helped Olivia down. She stumbled, and he steadied her with a hand on her arm. Easy now. Let us get you inside and fed. The front door opened before they reached it, and Mrs. Riley stood framed in the doorway. She was a widow of 50, strong and capable, with steel-gray hair and sharp blue eyes that missed nothing. Those eyes took in Olivia's disheveled state and Isaac's protective stance in one swift glance. "Found a lost lamb, did you, Isaac?" she asked. "Yes, madam. This is Miss Olivia Zimmerman. She has had a rough day and needs food and a safe place to rest." Mrs. Riley's expression softened immediately. "Well, come in, child. You look about ready to drop. Isaac, see to your horse and then come have supper. There is plenty." She ushered Olivia inside while Isaac led Thunder to the barn. He worked quickly, removing the saddle and bridle, brushing the horse down, and making sure he had feed and water. His mind kept returning to Olivia's face, to those green eyes full of hurt and fear and desperate hope. He had seen plenty of hard cases in his years out west, but something about her called to him in a way he did not fully understand. When he returned to the house, he found Olivia sitting at the kitchen table with a cup of tea in her hands. Mrs. Riley was bustling around the stove, piling a plate high with roasted chicken, potatoes, and greens from her garden. "Sit down, Isaac," Mrs. Riley ordered. "I will get you a plate too." Isaac washed his hands at the basin and took his usual seat across from Olivia. She looked a little better already, some color returning to her pale cheeks. Mrs. Riley set plates in front of both of them, and Isaac bowed his head briefly before picking up his fork. Olivia followed suit, and for several minutes the only sound was the quiet clink of silverware. "Miss Zimmerman has told me about her situation," Mrs. Riley said, settling into her own chair with a cup of coffee. "It is a disgraceful business. She is welcome to stay here as long as she needs." Olivia looked up, surprise clear on her face. "I could not impose like that." "I have no money to pay you. Did I ask for money?" Mrs. Riley's voice was gentle but firm. "Child, I have been in this territory for 25 years. I have seen all manner of folk come through, some good and some bad. I know trouble when I see it, and I know when someone needs help. You will stay, and that is the end of it. In exchange, you can help me around the house. Lord knows I could use another pair of hands with the cooking and cleaning. My rheumatism makes some tasks harder than they used to be." Tears filled Olivia's eyes again, but these seemed different from the desperate sobs Isaac had found at the creek. "Thank you. I do not know what I would have done if Mr. Northwood had not found me." "Call me Isaac, please." She looked at him, and a small, tentative smile crossed her face. It transformed her completely, and Isaac felt something shift in his chest. "Then you must call me Olivia." Mrs. Riley watched this exchange with knowing eyes but said nothing. "Isaac, I assume you will want to ride into town tomorrow and let Sheriff Donovan know about the situation. Miss Zimmerman's uncle might come looking for her." Isaac nodded. "Yes, madam. Though I imagine if he comes all the way from Illinois, the sheriff will have a few choice words for a man trying to force his niece into marriage against her will." "My uncle is in Cedar City," Olivia said quietly. "He moved there 2 years ago to work in the mines. That is where Mr. Patterson lives." Isaac and Mrs. Riley exchanged glances. Cedar City was only about 70 miles south, close enough that the uncle could very well come looking. "All the more reason to talk to the sheriff," Isaac said. "Sheriff Donovan is a fair man. He will not let anyone drag you off against your will." Olivia nodded, but Isaac could see the fear still lurking in her eyes. He wanted to reach across the table and take her hand, to promise her that everything would be all right, but he barely knew her. He had no right to make such promises. After supper, Mrs. Riley showed Olivia to the small guest room at the back of the house. Isaac returned to the bunkhouse where he slept, but rest did not come easily. He kept seeing Olivia's face, kept hearing the desperation in her voice when she spoke of having nowhere to go. He had always believed that the West was a place where people could remake themselves, could escape the chains of their past. But he also knew that the West could be cruel to those without protection, especially women. The next morning dawned clear and bright. Isaac rose early as always and went through his usual routine of feeding the animals and checking the fences on the near pastures. When he returned to the house for breakfast, he found Olivia already up and helping Mrs. Riley with the meal. She wore one of Mrs. Riley's spare dresses, which was slightly too large for her slighter frame, but she had pinned it competently. Her hair was braided and coiled at the nape of her neck, and the haunted look from yesterday had faded somewhat, though wariness still lingered in her eyes. "Good morning," she said when she saw him. "Morning, Olivia. Did you sleep well?" "Better than I have in weeks," she admitted. "Mrs. Riley's bed is far more comfortable than the floor of my uncle's cabin." Isaac frowned. "He made you sleep on the floor. He said I did not deserve a bed since I was not family by blood, only by marriage to my mother. He took me in out of Christian duty, he always said, not out of love." Mrs. Riley made a disgusted sound from the stove. "That man has a strange understanding of Christian duty. The Lord calls us to care for orphans and widows, not to treat them like servants." Breakfast was hearty and filling, and afterward Isaac prepared to ride into Marysvale. "I should be back by midday," he told Mrs. Riley. "Is there anything you need from town? Some thread and needles if the general store has them. And check with the postmaster to see if my order of seeds arrived." "I will." Isaac turned to Olivia. "Try not to worry. Sheriff Donovan will know what to do." She nodded, her hands twisting in the fabric of her borrowed dress. "Thank you, Isaac, for everything." The ride to Marysvale took about an hour. The town was small but growing, with a main street that boasted a general store, a saloon, a church, a small schoolhouse, and the sheriff's office. Isaac tied Thunder outside the sheriff's office and went inside. Sheriff Donovan was a big man in his 40s, with a weathered face and steady brown eyes. He had been a cavalry officer during the war and still carried himself with military bearing. "Isaac," he said, looking up from his desk, "what brings you to town?" Isaac closed the door and took the chair the sheriff indicated. I found a woman yesterday out by Willow Creek. She was lost and crying, running from her uncle who was trying to force her into marriage with a much older man. She is staying at the Riley Ranch now, but I wanted you to know in case her uncle comes looking." The sheriff's expression hardened. "Tell me everything." Isaac recounted the story, including Olivia's mention of her uncle in Cedar City and the banker named Patterson. The sheriff took notes, his jaw tight. "I know of this Patterson," Sheriff Donovan said when Isaac finished. "He was through here a few months back on business. Struck me as the sort who thinks money gives him the right to do as he pleases. How old is the woman?" 21. "Her name is Olivia Zimmerman, and she is of sound mind. I need to be sure she is making this choice freely and not being influenced. She is terrified, sir, but she is clear-headed and determined. She does not want to marry this man, and her uncle has no legal right to force her. She is of age." Sheriff Donovan nodded slowly. "You are right about that. The law is clear. A woman of 21 cannot be compelled to marry against her will, uncle or no uncle. If he shows up here, I will send him packing. And I will send a message to the sheriff in Cedar City to let him know the situation." Relief flooded through Isaac. "Thank you, Sheriff. You did the right thing bringing this to me. How is she managing?" "Mrs. Riley has taken her in. She is shaken but safe." "Good. Martha Riley is as solid as they come. The woman will be well cared for." The sheriff paused. "What about you, Isaac? You seem mighty concerned about this stranger." Isaac felt heat rise in his face. "Any decent person would be concerned, sir." "True enough. But I have known you for 3 years now, and I have never seen you this worked up over anything. Just be careful. A woman running from trouble sometimes brings that trouble right along with her." "I will keep that in mind." Isaac left the sheriff's office and went to the general store to fetch Mrs. Riley's thread and check on her seed order. The postmaster confirmed that the seeds had arrived, and Isaac collected the small package. As he was leaving, he passed by the window of the general store and spotted some ribbon in a shade of green that matched Olivia's eyes. On impulse, he bought a length of it. He was not sure what he would do with it, but something about the color called to him. He rode back to the ranch with the sun high overhead. When he arrived, he found Olivia in the garden behind the house, helping Mrs. Riley pull weeds from between the rows of vegetables. Both women looked up at his approach, and he saw hope and fear war in Olivia's expression. "Well?" Mrs. Riley asked, straightening up with one hand pressed to her lower back. "Sheriff Donovan says the law is on Olivia's side. She is of age and cannot be forced into marriage. If her uncle shows up, the sheriff will turn him away." Olivia's knees seemed to give out, and she sank down to sit right there in the dirt, her hands covering her face. Her shoulders shook, and Isaac realized she was crying again, but this time from relief. He dismounted quickly and crouched beside her. "It is all right," he said softly. "You are safe." She looked up at him, tears streaming down her face, and did something that surprised them both. She threw her arms around his neck and buried her face in his shoulder. Isaac froze for a moment, then carefully put his arms around her, one hand coming up to rest gently on the back of her head. "Thank you," she whispered against his shirt. "Thank you." Mrs. Riley watched with a small smile on her face. "Well now, I think that calls for a celebration. Isaac, go wash up. Olivia, come help me make a special supper. We will have a proper feast tonight." Olivia pulled back, wiping at her eyes. She looked embarrassed. "I am sorry. I should not have done that." "You have nothing to apologize for," Isaac said. He stood and offered her his hand. She took it, and he pulled her to her feet. Her hand was small and calloused in his, and he found himself reluctant to let go. That evening, true to her word, Mrs. Riley prepared a feast. They had fried chicken, fresh bread, roasted vegetables, and even a pie made with preserved apples. The three of them sat around the table, and for the first time since Isaac had found her, Olivia laughed. It was a lovely sound, bright and genuine, and it made Isaac want to hear it again and again. "So, Olivia," Mrs. Riley said as they finished the meal, "what did you do back in Illinois? Do you have any particular skills?" "I can read and write," Olivia said. "My mother was educated and insisted I learn as well. I can sew, cook, and keep house. I also helped the local doctor sometimes when he needed an extra pair of hands." "A woman of many talents," Mrs. Riley said approvingly. "We could certainly use someone like you around here. Isaac, did you not mention that the new schoolteacher fell through? That the town council has been looking for someone?" Isaac nodded slowly. "They have. Mrs. Peterson was supposed to come out from St. Louis, but she wrote last month to say she had married and would not be coming after all. School is supposed to start in 3 weeks." Olivia's eyes widened. "You think they might hire me? You said you can read and write. Can you teach?" "I have never formally taught, but I used to help the younger children at our church back home with their letters. I loved it." Mrs. Riley clapped her hands together. "Well, that settles it. Tomorrow we will go into town and speak to the town council. With my recommendation and the sheriff vouching for your character, I do not see why they would not hire you. The pay is not much, but it comes with a small house near the schoolhouse." Hope blazed in Olivia's face, bright and almost painful to see. "Do you really think they might give me a chance?" "I do," Mrs. Riley said firmly. "This is the West, child. What matters here is what you can do, not where you came from or who your people are. If you can teach those children their letters and numbers, the town will be grateful to have you." Isaac found himself grinning. She is right. "And Marysvale is a good town. The people will treat you fairly." That night, Isaac lay in his bunk and thought about the strange turn his life had taken in just 2 days. He had gone out looking for a stray calf, and found instead a woman who had already worked her way into his thoughts like no one else ever had. He barely knew Olivia, but he wanted to know her. He wanted to hear her laugh again, wanted to see her smile, wanted to be the reason that the fear left her eyes for good. He recognized what was happening to him, even if he did not fully understand it yet. He was falling for her and falling fast. The next morning, Mrs. Riley declared it a town day. She had Isaac hitch up the wagon, and the three of them rode into Marysvale together. The town was busier than usual, with folks coming in for supplies and to catch up on gossip. Isaac saw more than a few curious glances directed at Olivia as they made their way to the mayor's office. Mayor Hendricks was a jovial man who ran the general store when he was not handling town business. He listened attentively as Mrs. Riley explained the situation, leaving out the more distressing details of Olivia's flight from her uncle, but making it clear that she was looking for honest work and had the skills to teach. "Can you read from this?" the mayor asked, handing Olivia a newspaper. Olivia took it and read several paragraphs flawlessly, her voice clear and steady. The mayor nodded, impressed. "And your handwriting?" Olivia demonstrated her penmanship, writing out a sample text that the mayor provided. Her letters were neat and even easy to read. "Well, Miss Zimmerman," Mayor Hendricks said, leaning back in his chair, "I do not see any reason why you cannot take on the position. We have been in quite a bind without a teacher. The salary is $30 a month plus room and board in the teacher's house. It is not much, but it is honest work. School starts in 3 weeks, which gives you time to prepare. Do you accept?" Olivia's face shone. "Yes. Yes, I accept, thank you." They shook hands, and Isaac felt pride swell in his chest as if he had accomplished something himself. Olivia had done this on her own merits, with just a little help from friends, and now she had a future that was hers to control. The mayor took them to see the teacher's house, which was a small but sturdy cabin near the schoolhouse. It had a single room with a sleeping area separated by a curtain, a small kitchen area with a wood stove, and a table with 2 chairs. It was sparse, but it was clean and sound. "We will get you some supplies to start with," Mrs. Riley said, already making a mental list. "Bedding, dishes, food staples. The town should provide those as part of your compensation, Mayor." Of course, Mayor Hendricks agreed. "We will have everything delivered tomorrow." As they walked back toward the wagon, Olivia seemed to float rather than walk. "I cannot believe it," she said. 2 days ago I was crying by a creek, certain my life was over. Now I have a job and a home of my own." "You earned it," Isaac said. "No one gave you anything you did not deserve." She looked at him, and something in her expression made his heart beat faster. "I would not have any of this if you had not found me, Isaac. If you had just ridden past and ignored my crying." "I could never have done that," he said quietly. They stood there on the main street of Marysvale, looking at each other while Mrs. Riley pretended to examine a display in the general store window to give them a moment of privacy. "I want to repay you somehow," Olivia said. "There is nothing to repay, but if you are set on it, you could have supper with me sometime. After you are settled in your new home and have started teaching, I would like to hear how it goes." A blush rose in Olivia's cheeks, but she smiled. "I would like that." The next 3 weeks passed in a flurry of activity. Olivia stayed at the Riley Ranch but spent her days preparing for school, organizing the small schoolhouse, and setting up her new home. Isaac helped her move the furniture that various townspeople donated, and he spent an entire afternoon fixing the shutters on her windows that had come loose. They talked while they worked, conversations that ranged from childhood memories to dreams for the future. Isaac learned that Olivia loved poetry and could recite entire passages from memory. She learned that Isaac had always wanted to have his own ranch someday, a place he could build from the ground up and make into something lasting. "Why have you not done it yet?" she asked as they sat on her front step one evening, watching the sun set over the mountains. "Money, mostly. Ranch land is not cheap, and cattle cost money too. I have been saving my wages, but it will be a few more years before I have enough. Mrs. Riley pays fair, but ranch hands do not get rich." "You will do it," Olivia said with certainty. "You are the kind of person who achieves what they set their mind to." "What makes you say that?" She turned to look at him, her green eyes serious. "Because you saved me when you could have just ridden on. Because you have spent weeks helping me get settled when you have your own work to do. Because you care about doing things right. Those are the qualities of someone who succeeds." Isaac felt warmth spread through his chest. "You see me in a better light than I probably deserve." "I see you clearly," she said softly. The first day of school arrived. Isaac rode into town that morning, ostensibly to pick up supplies for Mrs. Riley, but really to see how Olivia fared. He found her outside the schoolhouse, greeting children and parents with a calm, welcoming demeanor that hid any nervousness she might have felt. She spotted him and waved, her face lighting up. Isaac tied Thunder to the hitching post and walked over. "Ready for your first day?" he asked. "As ready as I will ever be. I did not sleep much last night. You will do wonderfully. Those children are lucky to have you." A little boy, no more than 6 years old, tugged on Olivia's skirt. "Miss Zimmerman, is it time to start?" "In just a few minutes, Thomas." She smiled down at him, then looked back at Isaac. "I should go in." "Good luck." "Thank you. Will I see you soon?" "You will," he promised. Isaac forced himself to leave and attend to his actual business in town, but his thoughts kept drifting back to the schoolhouse and the woman inside it. He had not expected to feel this way about anyone, certainly not so quickly. But Olivia had become important to him in a way that defied logic. She was smart and kind and brave, and when she smiled at him, He felt like the luckiest man in the territory. That evening, he rode back into town with a bouquet of wildflowers he had picked on the way. He felt foolish carrying them, but he wanted to mark Olivia's first day as a teacher with something special. When he knocked on her door, she opened it with a tired but happy expression. "Isaac, what are you doing here? I wanted to see how your first day went, and I brought you these." He held out the flowers, feeling his face heat. Olivia took them with a delighted gasp. "They are beautiful. Come in, please." Her little house already felt like a home. She had hung curtains in the window, and someone had given her a small rug for the floor. She put the flowers in a jar of water and set them on the table, then turned to him with a smile that made his heart skip. The day went well. The children are wonderful. Some are quite advanced and some are just learning their letters, but they all seem eager to learn. "I feel like I have found my purpose, Isaac. Does that make sense?" "Perfect sense. I am happy for you, Olivia, truly." She moved closer to him, close enough that he could see the flecks of gold in her green eyes. "I am happy too, happier than I have been in years, and it is because of you. You did this yourself. But I would never have had the chance if you had not found me that day, if you had not cared enough to help a stranger." She reached up and laid her hand against his cheek, a gentle touch that made him shiver. "You are a good man, Isaac Northwood." He covered her hand with his own, turning his head slightly to press a kiss to her palm. It was a bold gesture, but it felt right. "You make me want to be better." They stood like that for a long moment, the air between them charged with something neither had words for yet. Then Olivia stepped back, her cheeks flushed. "Would you stay for supper? I do not have much, just some stew and bread, but I would enjoy the company." "I would like that very much." They ate together, talking and laughing, and Isaac realized that this felt more like home than any place he had been since leaving Missouri. Not the house itself, but the feeling of being with Olivia, of being seen and valued by her. As summer faded into fall, Isaac found excuses to come to town more often. Sometimes he helped Olivia with tasks around the schoolhouse or her home. Sometimes they just walked together in the evening, talking about everything and nothing. The townspeople began to notice, and Isaac heard more than one teasing comment about the cowboy who had lost his heart to the pretty schoolteacher. He did not deny it. How could he, when it was so obviously true? One October evening, Isaac arrived at Olivia's door with a serious expression. She let him in, concern immediate on her face. "What is wrong? Your uncle is in town." The color drained from Olivia's face. "What? How do you know?" "Sheriff Donovan sent word to the ranch. He rode in this afternoon, demanding to know where you are. The sheriff told him that you are of age and under the law's protection, that you cannot be forced into any marriage. Your uncle made some threats, but the sheriff made it clear that if he causes any trouble, he will spend the night in jail." Olivia sank into a chair, her hands shaking. "What if he tries to take me anyway? What if he—" Isaac knelt in front of her and took her hands in his. "He will not. I promise you, Olivia, the sheriff is watching him, and I will not let anyone hurt you. You cannot watch over me every moment. Then marry me." The words came out before Isaac had fully thought them through, but once they were out he realized he meant them with his whole heart. Olivia stared at him, her eyes huge. "What? Marry me," Isaac said again, more firmly this time. "If you are my wife, your uncle will have no claim on you whatsoever. I know this is sudden, and I know we have only known each other for a few months, but Olivia, I love you. I have loved you since the day I found you at the creek. I love your strength and your kindness and the way you laugh when you think no one is listening. I love how you care for those children and how you have made a life for yourself out of nothing. Marry me, and I will spend the rest of my life making sure you never have to be afraid again." Tears streamed down Olivia's face, but she was smiling. "You love me with everything I am. I love you too, she whispered. I have been trying not to, trying to tell myself it was too soon and too fast, but I do. I love you, Isaac. He stood, pulling her up with him, and cupped her face in his hands. Then say yes. Yes, she breathed. Yes, I will marry you. Isaac kissed her then, a soft, gentle kiss that held all the promise of the future they would build together. When they finally pulled apart, both of them were smiling. We should do it soon, Isaac said. Tomorrow, if possible, the preacher can marry us, and then your uncle will have to accept that you are beyond his reach. Olivia nodded. Tomorrow. They went to see Sheriff Donovan, who was pleased by the news. Smart thinking, he said. I will make sure your uncle knows that Miss Zimmerman is about to become Mrs. Northwood, and that any interference will be dealt with harshly. That night, Isaac stayed at Olivia's house, sleeping in a chair by the door while she slept behind the curtain, just to make sure she was safe. He dozed fitfully, waking at every sound, but the night passed without incident. The next morning dawned bright and clear. Mrs. Riley arrived early with a dress for Olivia, a lovely blue gown that she had worn to her own wedding decades before. I always hoped I might have a daughter to pass this along to, she said, her eyes suspiciously bright. But giving it to you feels just as right. Olivia hugged her fiercely. Thank you for everything. You took me in when I had nothing. You are like a daughter to me now, Mrs. Riley said. And Isaac is as close to a son as I have had in years. I am so happy for you both. The wedding took place in the small church in Marysvale at noon. Word had spread quickly, and half the town showed up to witness the ceremony. Isaac stood at the altar in his best clothes, his hat in his hands, and watched Olivia walk down the aisle toward him. She looked beautiful, her hair pinned up and adorned with the green ribbon he had bought months ago and finally given her the night before. Preacher Daniels performed the ceremony, his voice warm and sincere as he spoke about love and commitment and the blessings of marriage. When the time came for Isaac to say his vows, he looked into Olivia's eyes and spoke from the heart. Olivia, I promise to love you and protect you for all the days of my life. I promise to be your partner and your friend, to stand beside you through whatever comes. You brought light into my life when I did not even know I was living in shadow. I will spend every day trying to be worthy of you. Olivia's vows were equally heartfelt, her voice trembling but steady. Isaac, you saved me in every way a person can be saved. You gave me back my life and showed me what love should be. I promise to stand with you, to build a life with you, to love you with all that I am. I now pronounce you husband and wife, Preacher Daniels said with a broad smile. Isaac, you may kiss your bride. Isaac did, and the church erupted in cheers and applause. The celebration afterward was simple but joyful. Mrs. Riley had organized a meal at her ranch, and everyone was invited. There was music and dancing and more food than Isaac had seen in months. As the sun set, Isaac and Olivia stood together watching the festivities, her hand in his. Happy? He asked. Happier than I ever thought possible, she said. A man approached them then, and Isaac tensed when he recognized Olivia's uncle. He was a thin, sour-faced man with cold eyes. Olivia, he said, you cannot think this is over. You are my responsibility. I am a married woman now, Olivia said, her voice calm despite the way her hand tightened on Isaac's. I am no longer your concern. This is foolishness. You threw away a good match for this cowboy. Patterson was willing to pay good money for you. Isaac stepped forward, placing himself slightly in front of Olivia. The law says Miss Zimmerman, now Mrs. Northwood, is of age and free to make her own choices. She has made hers. You need to respect that and leave. The uncle's face twisted with anger. This is not over. Sheriff Donovan appeared at Isaac's shoulder. Actually, it is. "You have caused enough trouble. I am giving you until sundown to be out of this town. If I see you here after that, you will be arrested for harassment. Do I make myself clear?" The uncle glared at all of them, but he must have seen that he was outnumbered and outmatched. "Fine. But do not come crying to me when you realize what a mistake you have made, Olivia." "I will not," Olivia said firmly. "Goodbye, Uncle Martin." He turned and stalked away, and Isaac watched until he was out of sight. Then he turned to Olivia and saw that she was smiling. "It is really over," she said wonderingly. "He is gone. He is gone," Isaac confirmed, "and you are free." That night, Isaac and Olivia went to her little house, which was now their house. They stood in the doorway, and Isaac swept her into his arms, making her laugh as he carried her over the threshold. "What are you doing?" "It is tradition," he said, setting her down gently. A groom carries his bride into their home. Olivia wrapped her arms around his neck. "I like that tradition." They kissed again, and this time there was no audience, no reason to hold back. Isaac poured all his love and devotion into that kiss, and Olivia responded with equal fervor. When they finally broke apart, both were breathing hard. "I love you," Isaac said. "I love you too. So much." They spent their first night as husband and wife wrapped in each other's arms, talking until late into the night about their hopes and dreams for the future. Isaac told Olivia about his plans for a ranch, and she told him about the books she wanted to acquire for the school. They made plans and promises, building their future with words before they would build it with deeds. As autumn gave way to winter, Isaac and Olivia settled into married life. Olivia continued teaching and Isaac continued working for Mrs. Riley, but every evening he came home to Olivia, and every morning he woke beside her. It was a simple life, but it was theirs, and it was good. In December, Mrs. Riley called Isaac into her office at the ranch. She looked serious, and he wondered if he had done something wrong. "Sit down, Isaac," she said. "I have something to discuss with you." He sat, hat in his hands. "Yes, madam, I am getting old," she said bluntly. "My rheumatism is worse every year, and the truth is, running this ranch is getting to be too much for me. I have no children, no family to speak of. I have been thinking about what will happen to this place when I am gone." Isaac nodded, not sure where this was going. "I want to sell you the ranch." Isaac's jaw dropped. "Madam, you heard me. I want to sell you the ranch. You have worked for me faithfully for 3 years. You know every inch of this land, every head of cattle. You are honest and hardworking, and you have the makings of a fine rancher. I will sell it to you for a fair price, and you can pay me over time. I will keep a small portion of the house to live in for as long as I need it, but the operation will be yours. Mrs. Riley, I do not have the money for something like this. Then we will work out terms. Isaac, I have watched you and that new wife of yours. You are good people. You will take care of this land and you will build something that lasts. That matters more to me than getting top dollar from some stranger." She paused. "Unless you do not want it. Madam, it is more than I dreamed of. But the money, we will figure out the money. Do we have a deal?" Isaac stood and extended his hand. "We have a deal, and thank you. I will make you proud, I swear it." "I know you will." When Isaac told Olivia the news that night, she threw her arms around him and cried happy tears. "Your dream is coming true," she said. "Our dream," he corrected. "This is ours, Olivia. Yours and mine." Over the next months, they worked to make the ranch truly theirs. Isaac took on more responsibilities, learning the business side of ranching from Mrs. Riley. Olivia continued teaching but helped on weekends and evenings, keeping books and managing supplies. It was hard work, but they did it together, and that made all the difference. Spring came, and with it new life. The cattle calved successfully, and the ranch prospered. Olivia planted a larger garden, and Isaac repaired fences and improved the barn. They saved every penny they could to put toward buying the ranch outright. On a warm evening in May, nearly a year after Isaac had found Olivia crying at the creek, they sat together on the porch of the ranch house, watching the sun set over the land that was becoming theirs. "You ever think about that day?" Olivia asked. "The day you found me?" "All the time," Isaac admitted. "I think about how different my life would be if I had not gone looking for that stray calf, if I had not heard you crying, if I had just ridden past. I think about it too. I was so lost, so certain I had no future worth living. And then you appeared, like an answer to a prayer I did not know I was praying." Isaac took her hand. "You gave my life meaning, Olivia. Before you, I was just going through the motions, working and saving but never really living. You taught me what it means to have something to live for." She leaned her head on his shoulder. "We saved each other. I suppose we did." They sat in comfortable silence for a while, and then Olivia spoke again. "Isaac, I have something to tell you." He heard the nervousness in her voice and turned to look at her. "What is it?" She met his eyes, and he saw joy and anxiety mixed together in her expression. "I am with child. We are going to have a baby." For a moment Isaac could not speak, then a grin spread across his face, so wide it almost hurt. "Truly, truly. I have suspected for a few weeks, but I wanted to be sure before I told you." Isaac pulled her into his arms, holding her close. "A baby, we are going to have a baby." He pulled back to look at her face. "How do you feel? Are you well? Do you need anything?" Olivia laughed. "I am fine. A little tired, and I have been sick in the mornings, but the doctor says that is normal. He expects the baby will come in late November or early December." "A Christmas baby," Isaac said, wonder in his voice. He placed his hand gently on her stomach. "Hello in there, little one. I am your father, and I promise I will do everything I can to give you a good life." Tears glistened in Olivia's eyes. "You are going to be a wonderful father. And you will be an amazing mother. Those children at school adore you." The months that followed were full of preparation. Isaac worked harder than ever to ensure the ranch was prosperous and secure. Olivia continued teaching through the fall, though as her pregnancy advanced, she had to cut back on some of her activities. The townspeople rallied around them, giving them baby clothes and blankets, offering advice and support. Mrs. Riley was especially excited, treating Olivia like the daughter she never had and fussing over her to make sure she did not overwork. "You are carrying precious cargo," she would say. "You need to take care of yourself." As Olivia's due date approached, Isaac found himself both excited and terrified. He had helped birth countless calves and foals, but the thought of his own child being born filled him with a fear he had never known. What if something went wrong? What if he could not protect them? Olivia seemed to sense his worry. One night in late November, as they lay in bed, she took his hand and placed it on her swollen belly. "Feel that. The baby is kicking." Isaac felt the small flutter of movement under his palm and was filled with awe. "That is incredible. This baby is strong and I am strong. We will be fine, Isaac, I promise." "I love you," he said. "I love you so much it scares me sometimes. I love you too, and our baby is going to love you just as much." On a cold December night, 2 weeks before Christmas, Olivia woke Isaac in the darkness. "It is time," she said, her voice tight with pain. Isaac sprang into action, helping her to the chair while he dressed quickly. He rode hard to fetch the doctor and sent word to Mrs. Riley. By the time he returned with the doctor, Mrs. Riley was already there, having moved into the house to help with the birth. The next several hours were the longest of Isaac's life. He paced outside the bedroom door, listening to Olivia's cries and feeling helpless. Mrs. Riley came out periodically to give him updates. "She is doing fine, Isaac. These things take time." Finally, as dawn broke over the mountains, he heard a new sound, the thin, reedy cry of a newborn baby. His heart leaped into his throat. The bedroom door opened and the doctor emerged, smiling. "Congratulations, Mr. Northwood. You have a son, a healthy, strong boy. And Olivia, she is tired but well. You can go in and see them." Isaac entered the bedroom to find Olivia propped up on pillows, looking exhausted but radiant. In her arms was a tiny bundle wrapped in blankets. She looked up at him with a smile that outshone the sunrise. "Come meet your son," she said softly. Isaac approached on shaking legs and looked down at the baby. He had a shock of dark hair and a red, wrinkled face. His tiny fists waved in the air, and as Isaac watched, the baby opened his eyes. They were blue, though Isaac knew they might change color as he grew. "He is perfect," Isaac whispered. "Absolutely perfect. Would you like to hold him?" Carefully, so carefully, Isaac took the baby from Olivia's arms. The child was so small, so fragile, and yet Isaac had never felt anything so right as holding his son. "Hello, little one," he murmured. "Welcome to the world. Your mother and I have been waiting for you." The baby made a small sound, almost like he was responding, and Isaac felt tears prick his eyes. "What should we name him?" Olivia asked. They had discussed names but never settled on one. Now, looking at his son, Isaac knew. "James, after my father, James Northwood." Olivia smiled. "James." "I love it. Hello, James. I am your mother, and I love you more than words can say." Over the next weeks, they adjusted to life with a baby. James was a good child, relatively calm and easy, though he kept them up at nights with his need to feed. Isaac found himself marveling at every little thing his son did, every yawn and stretch and tiny smile. Olivia proved to be a natural mother, patient and loving. She sang to James, soft lullabies that filled the house with warmth. Isaac would often come in from work to find her rocking the baby, her voice gentle and sweet. Christmas came, and they celebrated quietly, just the three of them and Mrs. Riley. Isaac had carved a small wooden horse for James, even though the baby was far too young to play with it. "For when he is older," Isaac explained. "I want him to have something I made with my own hands." As they sat by the fire that Christmas evening, James asleep in a cradle that Isaac had built, Olivia looked at her husband with love shining in her eyes. "Do you remember what you said to me the day we met? You asked if I needed help." "I remember. I needed help so badly that day. I needed someone to show me that there was still good in the world, that there were people who cared. You did that, Isaac. You gave me everything." Isaac moved to sit beside her, putting his arm around her shoulders. "You gave me just as much. More, even. You gave me a reason to build something that lasts, a family to call my own. I spent so many years just existing, and then you taught me how to live." They sat together, watching the fire and listening to their son's soft breathing, and Isaac thought about the strange and wonderful path that had brought them here. If he had not gone looking for that stray calf, if he had not heard Olivia crying, if he had let fear or indifference keep him from helping, none of this would exist. They would both be different people, living different lives, never knowing what they had missed. But he had heard her tears, and he had chosen to help, and that simple act of compassion had changed everything. The years that followed were good ones. Isaac and Olivia officially purchased the ranch from Mrs. Riley, paying her in installments as agreed. The ranch prospered under Isaac's management, growing slowly but steadily. Olivia returned to teaching when James was old enough, and Mrs. Riley delighted in watching her grandson, as she called him, during the day. When James was 3 years old, Olivia gave birth to a daughter they named Sarah. 2 years after that came another son, whom they named Samuel. The house that had once felt spacious now rang with the sound of children's laughter and running feet. Isaac proved to be the father he had hoped to be, patient, loving, firm when needed but always fair. He taught his children about the land, about caring for animals, about the value of honest work. Olivia taught them their letters and numbers, instilling in them a love of learning. The ranch continued to grow. Isaac hired on a few more hands as the herd expanded. He became known throughout the territory as a fair employer and an honest dealer. People respected him, and more importantly, they trusted him. Olivia remained the schoolteacher in Marysvale for many years, beloved by generations of children. She eventually wrote and published a series of readers designed for frontier schools. Simple books that taught children to read, while also teaching them practical knowledge about the world they lived in. The books were modestly successful, bringing in a little extra income and a great deal of satisfaction. Mrs. Riley lived to see all 3 children grow, passing away peacefully in her sleep when James was 10 years old. She left everything she still owned to Isaac and Olivia, along with a letter that Olivia read through tears. "My dear children," the letter began, "for that is what you have become to me. I have lived a long and mostly happy life, but the happiest years were these last ones, watching you build a family and a future. Isaac, you are the son I never had. Olivia, you are the daughter of my heart. Take care of each other and take care of this land. It is yours now, truly and completely. All my love, Martha Riley." They buried her on a hill overlooking the ranch, under a cottonwood tree she had always loved. The whole town came to pay their respects. Afterward, as they stood by the grave, Olivia leaned against Isaac. She was happy, Olivia said. At the end, she was happy. "Because of you," Isaac said. "You brought joy into her life, just like you brought it into mine." "We brought joy to each other," Olivia corrected. "That is what love does." James grew into a strong, capable young man who loved the ranch as much as his father did. He learned every aspect of the business and eventually took on more and more responsibility, allowing Isaac to step back slightly from the day-to-day operations. Sarah inherited her mother's love of learning and became a teacher herself, taking over Olivia's position at the school when Olivia finally retired. Samuel, the youngest, had a talent with horses that amazed everyone. He could gentle the wildest Mustang with patience and kindness, never resorting to harsh methods. On their 20th wedding anniversary, Isaac and Olivia took a rare day off from work and rode out to Willow Creek, the place where they had first met. The creek still ran clear and bright. The willows still dipped their branches toward the water. They dismounted and walked to the flat boulder where Isaac had first seen Olivia crying all those years ago. "I still remember how scared I was that day," Olivia said, running her hand over the sun-warmed stone. "I thought my life was over. I remember thinking how beautiful you were, even with tears on your face," Isaac said. "I remember wanting to take away your pain. You did. You dried my tears and gave me joy." She turned to look at him, this man she had loved for 2 decades, whose face was more dear to her than any other. His hair was touched with gray now, and lines crinkled around his eyes from years of squinting into the sun. But to her, he was still the handsome cowboy who had shown her kindness when she needed it most. "You gave me joy too," Isaac said, taking her hands in his. "Every single day you give me joy." They kissed there by the creek, the same creek that had witnessed Olivia's tears and Isaac's compassion, and it felt like coming full circle. On the ride back to the ranch, Olivia was quiet. Isaac glanced at her. "What are you thinking about? About how everything can change in a single moment." "If you had not found me that day, I would have died in those hills. I am certain of it. I had no food, no water, no idea where I was going. I would have given up. But I did find you. You did. And you saved me. Not just my life, but everything that makes life worth living. You gave me love and family and purpose. You gave me a future." Isaac reached over and squeezed her hand. "We gave each other a future, together." As they crested the hill that overlooked their ranch, they could see their children in the yard. James was working with one of the young horses. Sarah was reading on the porch. Samuel was helping his grandmother, as they had all taken to calling Mrs. Riley before she passed, with some task in the garden that had been hers and now was Sarah's special project in her memory. "Look at what we built," Olivia said softly. "Look at what came from that one moment of compassion." "I am looking," Isaac said, "and I am grateful. Every single day I am grateful." They rode down the hill together, side by side, toward the home and family and life they had created. Behind them, the creek continued its eternal song, a witness to the beginning of their story and a reminder that kindness, compassion, and love could transform even the darkest moments into something beautiful. Years continued to pass in the quiet, steady way they do in places where life follows the rhythms of the land and the seasons. Isaac and Olivia grew older, their children grew up and began families of their own. James married a lovely young woman from Beaver, a town to the north, and they gave Isaac and Olivia their first grandchild, a boy named Isaac after his grandfather. Sarah married a young doctor who had come to Marysville, and they had twin girls who were the apple of everyone's eye. Samuel eventually married the daughter of a neighboring rancher, uniting two properties and creating a partnership that benefited both families. The original house expanded to accommodate visits from the growing family. Isaac added on rooms, and Olivia made sure each grandchild had a special place that was just theirs when they came to visit. The ranch prospered beyond Isaac's wildest early dreams, becoming one of the most successful operations in that part of Utah. But more than the material success, what Isaac treasured most was the love that filled their home. Every Sunday, the family gathered for dinner, the table laden with food and the room filled with laughter and conversation. These were the moments Isaac lived for, when he could look around at his children and grandchildren and know that he had built something that would last beyond his own lifetime. On their 30th anniversary, their children surprised them with a party in town. It seemed like the entire population of Marysville turned out to celebrate the couple who had become pillars of the community. People stood and shared stories of how Isaac and Olivia had helped them over the years, small kindnesses and large generosities that the couple had never expected to be remembered. "I remember when my barn burned down," one farmer said, standing with his hat in his hands. Isaac showed up the next morning with lumber and a crew, and they rebuilt it in 3 days. Would not take a penny for it. Said neighbors help neighbors, and that was that. Miss Olivia, as she was then, taught my daughter to read when everyone else said the girl was slow and could not learn, another woman said. She stayed after school every day for months, patient and kind, until my Jenny could read as well as any child in the territory. Jenny is a nurse now, up in Salt Lake City, and she says it is all because Miss Olivia believed in her. Story after story, people stood and testified to the goodness of Isaac and Olivia Northwood. By the end, both of them had tears in their eyes. "We just tried to live right," Isaac said when called upon to speak. "We tried to treat people the way we wanted to be treated. If we helped folks along the way, well, that is what we are supposed to do. We are all just trying to get through this life together." "I will say this, though," Olivia added, standing beside her husband. 30 years ago I was lost and alone, crying by a creek, certain I had no future. This man found me and showed me kindness when he could have just ridden past. That one act of compassion changed my entire life." It taught me that we all have the power to change someone's world, just by choosing to care. Isaac dried my tears that day, and he has been giving me joy every day since. I am grateful beyond words for the life we have built together." The crowd erupted in applause, and Isaac pulled Olivia close, kissing her forehead. "I am the lucky one," he murmured, just loud enough for her to hear. "You gave me everything that matters." They danced that night, the same way they had at their wedding 30 years before, and if their steps were a little slower and their joints a little creakier, their love was no less strong. If anything, it had deepened and matured, like good wine aging in a barrel, becoming richer and more complex with time. As they moved around the floor, Olivia rested her head on Isaac's shoulder. "Do you have any regrets?" she asked. "Not a single one. You?" "Only that I did not meet you sooner, so I could have loved you longer." "We have time yet," Isaac said. "I plan on loving you for many more years." "Is that a promise?" "It is a vow." And Isaac kept that vow. They had 15 more good years together. Years in which they watched their grandchildren grow and welcomed great-grandchildren into the world. They saw the ranch pass to James, who ran it with the same integrity and care that his father had. They saw Sarah's school produce generation after generation of educated young people who went on to make their mark on the world. They saw Samuel's reputation as a horseman spread far and wide, until people came from all over the territory to purchase animals he had trained. When Isaac was 69 and Olivia 66, Isaac suffered a stroke. It left him weakened on one side, unable to do the physical work he had always prided himself on. For a man who had built his identity around being strong and capable, it was a hard blow. But Olivia was there, just as she had always been. She helped him with the exercises the doctor prescribed, encouraged him when he grew frustrated, and loved him through the dark days when he questioned his worth. "Your worth is not in what you can do with your hands," she told him firmly one day when he was particularly despondent. "Your worth is in who you are. You are a good man, Isaac Northwood. A good husband, a good father, a good grandfather. You built a family and a legacy that will outlast both of us. That is what matters." Slowly, painfully, Isaac regained some of what he had lost. He would never be what he once was, but he learned to adapt. He could still ride, though he needed help mounting. He could still give advice and guidance to James about the ranch, though he could no longer do the work himself. Most importantly, he could still love his family, and they loved him in return. On a summer evening, when Isaac was 74 and Olivia 71, they sat together on the porch as they had done thousands of times before. Their great-grandchildren played in the yard, their laughter ringing through the air. Olivia held Isaac's hand, the one that still worked well, and they watched the sun set over the land they had made their own. "It has been a good life," Isaac said. His voice was slower than it once was, slightly slurred from the stroke, but his mind was still sharp. "The best life," Olivia agreed. "I would not change a single thing. Not even the hard parts, not even that day when you were so scared and alone." Olivia considered this. "Not even that, because that day led to all of this. That day led to you, and you were worth every tear I cried before I found you." Isaac raised her hand to his lips and kissed it gently. "I love you, Olivia Northwood. I have loved you from the moment I saw you at the creek, and I will love you until my last breath. And I love you, Isaac, always and forever." They sat in peaceful silence as the sun dipped below the mountains, painting the sky in brilliant shades of orange and pink and purple. The children's laughter faded as mothers called them in for supper. Lights began to glow in the windows of the ranch buildings. The world settled into the quiet peace of evening. Isaac and Olivia sat hand in hand, two souls who had found each other against all odds, who had built a life of love and purpose from a single moment of compassion. They had weathered storms and celebrated triumphs. They had raised children and built a legacy. They had loved each other through youth and middle age and now into the golden years of their lives. And they knew, with the certainty that comes from a lifetime spent together, that their love would endure beyond even death. They had written their story into the land itself, into the children and grandchildren who carried their blood and their values forward. They had shown, through the simple act of choosing love over fear and compassion over indifference, that one good choice could ripple outward and change not just 2 lives but generations. Isaac passed away peacefully in his sleep 3 years later, Olivia's hand clasped in his. She grieved him deeply but not desperately, secure in the knowledge that they had loved each other well and completely. She lived another 4 years, surrounded by family, still teaching her great-grandchildren their letters and sharing stories of the grandfather they would barely remember. When Olivia's time came, she went with a smile on her face, her last words a whisper heard only by Sarah, who sat beside her bed. "I see him," Olivia said, her eyes focused on something no one else could see. "He is waiting for me. Just like that first day, he is there to help me find my way." They buried Olivia beside Isaac on the hill, overlooking the ranch, under the cottonwood where Mrs. Riley also rested. The entire extended family gathered, along with what seemed like half the territory. 3 generations of students came to pay their respects to the teacher who had changed their lives. James, now an old man himself, stood at the graveside and spoke for the family. "My parents taught us that the greatest thing we can do in this life is to love well and help generously. They showed us by example how to build something that lasts, not with our hands, but with our hearts. They found each other when both were lost, and together, they created a legacy of love that will continue as long as there are Northwoods to tell their story." And the Northwoods did continue to tell the story. It became a family legend, passed down through the generations. The story of how Isaac found Olivia crying at Willow Creek, how he dried her tears and gave her joy, and how that simple act of compassion had been the foundation for everything that followed. Great-great-grandchildren who never knew Isaac and Olivia in life nevertheless knew them through the stories, knew the values they had lived by, and strove to emulate their example. The ranch continued to prosper, remaining in the family, a testament to what Isaac and Olivia had built together. And sometimes, on quiet evenings when the light slanted just right through the willows, people claimed they could see 2 figures by the creek. An old cowboy and his wife, holding hands and watching the water flow, their love as eternal and enduring as the land itself. The story of Isaac and Olivia Northwood became more than just a family tale. It became a reminder to everyone who heard it that compassion matters, that kindness can change lives, that love is the most powerful force in the world. It reminded people that we all have the power to be someone's answered prayer, if we just choose to care. Their legacy lived on not just in their descendants, but in the countless lives they had touched, directly and indirectly, through acts of generosity and kindness that rippled outward like stones thrown into still water. The barn Isaac had rebuilt stood for another 50 years. The students Olivia had taught became teachers themselves, passing on her methods and her compassion. The horses Samuel had trained sired generations of gentle, intelligent animals. But more than any physical legacy, what Isaac and Olivia left behind was a template for how to love well, how to build a life of meaning and purpose, how to face hardship with courage and triumph with humility. They showed that it was possible to take the broken pieces of a life, as Olivia's had been that day at the creek, and reshape them into something beautiful. They proved that one person, making one good choice, could change the entire trajectory of someone's future. The ranch eventually passed out of direct Northwood ownership, but the family stipulated that the hill where Isaac, Olivia, and Mrs. Riley were buried would be maintained in perpetuity as a family cemetery. To this day, Northwood descendants make pilgrimages there, bringing flowers and sharing stories with the new generations. And sometimes, those visitors take a walk down to Willow Creek, to the flat boulder where it all began. They sit there and imagine a young woman, frightened and alone, sobbing out her despair. They imagine a cowboy on a bay horse, hearing those cries and choosing to help rather than ride on. They imagine the first tentative words exchanged, the beginning of trust, the spark that would eventually grow into a love that lasted a lifetime. The creek still runs clear and bright. The willows still dip their branches toward the water. And if you listen carefully, you might hear something beyond the babble of the stream. You might hear laughter and soft words of love and the echo of a promise made and kept. To love, to honor, to cherish, until death and beyond. This is the story of Isaac and Olivia Northwood, the cowboy and the woman at the creek. It is a story about finding love in unexpected places, about the power of compassion, and about building a legacy that transcends individual lives. It is a story that began with tears but was filled with joy. A story that started with a stranger's kindness and became an enduring testament to the transformative power of love. And though Isaac and Olivia have been gone for many years now, their story continues. It continues in every act of kindness, every moment of compassion, every time someone chooses to help a stranger in need. It continues in the family they created, in the land they loved, and in the hearts of everyone who hears their tale and resolves to love a little better, care a little more, and build something that lasts. This is their happily ever after, not an ending but a legacy that goes on and on, rippling through time, touching lives, changing futures, proving that true love never dies. It lives in memory and story, in the children of children of children, in the land itself. Isaac dried Olivia's tears and gave her joy, and that joy spread outward in waves that continue still. A gift that keeps on giving, a love that never ends.